after this. So final question here, and this is just getting to discussion, and I'll pull up the chat here and see where you guys are, is, be thinking about the whole goal of this talk is to get you guys thinking about biosecurity in your yards and how it could work for you. Some of these, they don't have to be huge, big changes, but simple things that you can start to apply or be thinking about how you can employ them in your yard. Number 10, okay, continued learning. So we're at the end of the tips here. And I provided some resources here for you, different biosecurity readings. And if you're interested in exploring this topic further, certainly they're here for you, and some good articles and resources. If you look at the bottom here, I did write an article for bee culture, and you guys could check that out. And I know that the American Bee Journal has some feature articles for other authors on biosecurity as well. And I believe that came out in November. It was the November article.
It's also open to Q&A right now. Anybody has a question could actually just write it down in the chat, or just come online and say something here.
This is Charlie. So when you're running 300 or 400 supers, it's not, how do you prevent bees from robbing it?
That's why, if you look at my article, it actually says in there, for a lot of big beekeepers and migratory beekeepers, some of these things may be difficult to apply. You again, you might not be able to do everything. Robbing can be very difficult to prevent, but you certainly shouldn't do things that encourage it either. So, we can control what we can control. We don't necessarily have to make it worse. Sometimes we can't keep it from happening, but we can discourage it.
Right. That's where knowing the health of all the colonies in your yard is probably the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the season, we've got an open barn, and we just stack all the empty supers in there, and there's no way you're going to keep the bees off of it. There's just no way. They're still going in there today.
Yeah. And that's what's nice about knowing, if you have a yard and you know that the majority of the bees that are around there are going to be your bees, you're kind of just sharing your stuff with your stock, and you get to a point where it's like, okay, well, most of these bees I know are probably my bees, but you always have to be aware that you could have feral bees around or some neighbor bees that you don't necessarily know about. But it's always good to know who's in your neighborhood.
Mike Saneda. You spoke about the wet frames and putting those out. What about taking your wet frames and setting them on top of your hive with the cover on and all of that? And, and even though you don't know which hive that particular frame came from.
Yep. That's some great insight, Mike, and thank you for reminding me about that, because I was actually going to say, an alternative to just setting your box out somewhere and kind of attracting everybody is if and this is something that pretty commonly happens, when we pull honey off, especially in the summertime. If you get some big hives, you may just split them at that time too. It's a common time to make some splits. So, taking off those wet extracted supers and then putting them back maybe in some splits that you made, that would be kind of a safer way to utilize those hives. Now you have some drawn comb and you're building up those splits, giving these some extra space for them and maybe a little snack of honey on the way. So it's a safer thing if you can put them actually back into hives, if that's possible in your situation, even if it's not the same hive.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did that this year, and I found that overnight is long enough. I put them in the afternoon, out the next morning, took them back off again before they had a chance to fill them up again.
Yep.
And
that's smart. You're doing biosecurity.
All right, I'm done.
Any other questions that you guys have? I know I like blabbed on and on.
Well, this is exactly a question. It's more about takeaway. I think it makes me more aware if you're mentoring, especially if they're coming over to your apiary, it's probably wise to say, hey, bring your bale, and I have the hive tools and everything. You don't have to bring your hive tools along.
Mhm.
One thing that I'm also, I'm glad you pointed out, I'm kind of lazy. I should just have a garbage bag, and a lot of times I'll go around and clean my bottom trays off and out in the grass, and it'd probably be wiser to put it into a garbage bag and collect all that waste product instead of just putting it back out there, potentially contaminating something. So that was a really a good point there. So
yeah, I'm guilty of being lazy too, and I think we all get in a hurry. But if it's something that if you could just change that little habit, it could make a bit of a difference.
And then I see we have Dr. Lynn here on board, another veterinarian. Do you have any kind of comments?
Not really. I think she hit a lot of good points, and certainly as a veterinarian is like, that we're used to doing all this biosecurity stuff. So, I do it for cats and dogs and cattle and all the same things, and you have to treat bees the same way. So, so I think she did a good job. I can't think of any questions.
Okay. I think for all of us, it's more of a mindset. Bees are small little livestock, and what they always say about livestock: if you have livestock, you're going to have dead stock, and that's what we're trying to prevent. Before we close here, I do want to. I don't want to say thank you yet. Is there any other questions?
And this is Priscilla. Tracy, thank you so much for a great presentation. I was going to ask if we could get a copy of your final slide to use as a reference, please.
Sure, I can send that.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
I did see a comment from Charlie Hepner about something about wildfires. That there were some instances in the fall. Let me see if I get this up here. There was a couple beekeepers who had brush fires go under their hives last week. No idea what spring will bring, but I might suggest keeping areas mowed and mow around them to make a fire break. That's something we don't really think about. Interesting.
And that's a good idea. That's actually would be considered a bit of a biosecurity too, because that's trying to keep threats out of your yard.
Again, thank you. It's definitely a whole, we think about biosecurity with the mass, but now we even consider it more with our livestock here. So I want to thank you again. Anybody have anything to show and tell at all? And if not, we're probably going to have another informal meeting, just sort of a question and answer meeting in December. But Charlie, if we can, if you have any announcements from the state level.
There's not a lot going on at the state level. So the fall conference was scheduled for November, and of course that got canceled some time ago. There's a limited farm show going to happen. It'll all be virtual. So I'm still chair of the exhibits, and right now I don't know that any exhibits have been entered. So, but the idea was just to not just shut it off completely. We wanted to have at least open and available if somebody wanted to do something. I could possibly see people closer to the farm show participating. So because there's limits to how many people can be in the building at one time. So they're still going to do a virtual farm show. So keep an eye on it. We'll try to post stuff as it comes available. And the beekeepers are trying to participate in some fashions with that. I guess it'll be what it is. We're not sure what it's going to look like, but I know there's a lot of effort. So we'll post information as we get it. Beyond that, I don't think there's anything else from the state at this point in time.
Secretary report, I did post the minutes on the Google board, so I'm sure everybody could read that. Balance from the treasurer is basically the same, pretty much the same what we had before. Bert, I know you're on. Do you have anything for a membership report?
Well, due to the COVID situation, we kind of shut down adding new members and at least charging any dues for them due to the fact we had no idea what kind of events we would be having or anything like that. So, and we haven't been approached by very many people to join either, again, because we're not having events that they know about to come and try to join up. We've had about 8 people add since the COVID thing started, and I guess it was in March. And 4 of those were free students from my class, and the others were free students from some other class, I think, if I remember correctly. So we really haven't had very much activity. I'm assuming that once we can understand, the situation with the meeting, face-to-face meeting capability, and also what our more firm schedule is for other events, we'll probably go ahead and start dealing with the issue of dues and dues collection and that sort of thing.
Okay, well, good, thank you. Is there any classes scheduled for next year yet or anything? Charlie, or anybody?
Not that I know of. I haven't figured out how to approach that at this point.
Okay.
I can mention that Asbury Woods Nature Center and I have talked about doing some classes in these would be just like one-day ones in the spring, possibly 2021, and also in the fall next year.
Okay. Let's
And
move.
I have a question. Did we realize any influx of to our treasury from the sale of mead from Ironstone Meadery?
At this moment, I not to my knowledge, I don't really know. Fern, we haven't had an update from Fern. She's going to be getting to us shortly on this.
I believe we did have some money deposited from that. Fern sent an email a week or so ago. It was a couple $100, $200 or $300.
Okay.
So yeah,
Well,
we're getting some.
That's good news. Is there any old business?
Hey, I got a show and tell. We got time.
Okay, let me go to the new. Okay, go to show and tell then.
Okay, so I posted a couple days ago. I posted that there was a tree blew down in the storm, and nobody replied. John Prinky ended up. Let me know if you can see this. Can I share the screen?
It should be.
Well, anyway, maybe I'll just tell the story. So there's a pine tree and it split. The trunk is still standing and the trunk has most of the bees in it. So he is just it's big enough that he can set a super inside on top of the bees. Wow. So that's going to be his approach, is just to put a super with some frames of honey on it and some drawn comb and just wrap it up. And hopefully they'll migrate up into the box by spring. So it's in. Then I just got a call this afternoon from another one in Titusville that blew over. They were cutting the tree apart and they cut through the hive. They didn't realize it was there. So he's gonna go retrieve that one or what he can out of it.
Interesting.
Tomorrow. So that was just a little catch up from what we
okay.
posted there.
Not all the way in Titusville. That's more than 5 miles.
Yeah, I think I copied you on a reply to him. So
right.
I was trying to. It occurred to me when I'm involved with the Apiary Advisory Board at the Department of Agriculture. So we meet generally twice a year at the Department of Agriculture. And one of the employees who was always in our meeting moved to Washington State. He happens to have grown up in Erie, and he is one of the people that was involved with the Asian giant hornet removal out of that tree.
Oh,
So
That's interesting.
I emailed him, and he is willing to do a presentation for us in January. He said they have they have somebody in the department that does that, but he said he would do it himself because he's from Erie. So
wow.
we're closer to that story than we know. But I thought it would be good because there's so much still misinformation out there. And I think it'd just be great to have somebody firsthand that's actually put their fingers on them,
Wow.
be able to talk to
Great
us.
idea.
That's cool. That's really good.
Yeah. So it's a pretty cool opportunity.
Any other announcements at all? So this date, this is going to be, this date might change. We might do another evening one. We actually had less people at this evening one than we did during the Saturday morning, which is kind of interesting. But we do have some new people that are able to chime in and attend. So I think maybe it's good to have a variance, do some in the evening, do some in the morning. It seems like a lot of the clubs are going towards the evening ones more, especially when they are doing a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, he was okay with January 16th at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So he's 4 hours away, but he said that's not a problem because that would put him at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
And that would work good for him.
Excellent. Very good. Charlie, on a personal note, how are you feeling with your knees getting your knee done? Are you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I've had a partial knee replacement 4 weeks ago, and it's I'm probably walking more than I should sometimes, but it's doing good.
Okay.
Little to no pain. It's some stiffness, but otherwise I'm very pleased with it.
Very good. Any other comments before we have adjournment at all? You know, it's a big difference with the Zoom. If we were having this in person, we would have an adjournment and half of you would stay around for another half an hour talking. So that's why it's good to have the bee breakfasts. But with the COVID, we're in a different situation here. So just be patient, hang in there. Enjoy turkey dinner next week. Enjoy the family, whichever you can, if you can get together or not. And can I call for adjournment? Does somebody have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
A second.
Okay, Bert moved, Priscilla seconded. Okay, real good. Thanks for joining. Dr. Tracy, thanks again. It's gonna change some of my habits. You guys have a good holidays and God bless.
Bye, everyone.